Hi, I'm Hannah Archer. I'm a peer consultant at the UTC Writing and Communication Center. I'm a senior majoring in geology and international studies, and today I'm going to teach you how to email your professor. I have emailed a lot of professors over my years here, and hopefully I can teach you some tips and tricks that I have learned. First, I want to show you what not to do when you're emailing a professor. The first thing you'll notice is the subject line includes a misspelled word. The introduction of the sentence is unprofessional and doesn't include the professor's name. The body is simple and includes grammatical errors. And then below you see here the teacher's response to that student, which is pretty funny, but if you're on the receiving end of it, I imagine it would not be as funny. So some of the things that we're going to go over is who you're writing to. You need to know, have you met them before, and make sure you have the correct honorific when writing to them, like Dr., Mrs., or Professor. And then you want to know why you're writing. Is it about a missing class, assignment extensions, just asking a question, or are you scheduling a meeting? Then you want to include relevant details. Keep these short and sweet and to the point. You want to let the professor know what class you're in, what class, day, or assignment the email is regarding, and you want to make sure you check the syllabus before you email your professor to double check that you're not asking any questions that he or she has answered in the syllabus. And then for grammar and punctuation, you want to keep it professional, so keep it pretty safe with simple sentences and that get your point across clearly. So who you're writing to, you want to make sure you know your audience, keep it professional, and use official titles and formal greetings. This may be your first time reaching out to the professors, so you need to introduce yourself because they don't know you. You want to use proper grammar and syntax and make it easy to read. Don't use their first name unless you have their permission, and don't assume their preferred title, whether it's Dr., Mrs., or Mr. When in doubt, check the syllabus or just use professor. And don't get their name wrong, including misspellings. This is another example of what not to do when you're emailing a professor. The first thing is Dr. Green is not grammatically correct in terms of punctuation and capitalization. Again, this I is not capitalized, which is grammatically incorrect, and you should capitalize your days of the week. And then this part at the bottom is pretty unprofessional, so you want to make sure that you don't have any signatures that you are unaware of before you email your professor. Next, you want to analyze why you're writing. You want to be clear, genuine, and concise. You want to make sure you use the email subject line, and this can include your purpose for writing, the name and class number. For example, questions about rhetorical analysis, or you can say the class prefix and number assignment or something similar. And then you want to always have a goal for your email. You don't want to fluff up your email with overly nice comments like, hope you're enjoying the weather today. You want to explain exactly why you're reaching out, and you can leave out excessive detail. If you can't explain your situation in 1 to 2 sentences, I would recommend making an appointment with your professor to talk with them in person. So your subject line is really important, and it should include relevant details that are explained more thoroughly throughout the email. And for your action item or your goal, a good way to keep track of that is to make sure that your email stays on track with the purpose of the subject line of the email. For large classes, your professor may have more than one to keep up with, so make sure you identify yourself and your class clearly in your email. Another example of what not to do. First, the student does not have an introduction at all and doesn't introduce themselves, nor do they have a closing, their name, like thank you or sincerely. which makes your email a lot more professional. So for length and detail, you want it to have the sort of magic length, that it's long enough to get your point across, but short enough that they don't have to search for relevant information through the block of your text. Your email should always include your action item or your goal, the class you're in, and the day or assignment that class is being written about. A good tip is to make sure that you check the syllabus for any relevant documents before composing your email. Again, a lot of the times a professor will just simply ignore your email if the answer you're looking for has been addressed in the syllabus. And it's really important to not forget about grammar and punctuation. This can really bump up the professionalism of your email and gives your professor a more overall positive experience with reading your email. So a good way is just practice it. Know your homophones, there, your versus your, it's and its, and to, etc. Read it out loud before sending it. That's a great way to catch these errors before you send it. And punctuation, make sure you use it. For question marks and exclamation points, use them sparingly. You don't need to overuse the exclamation mark. And for commas, know the rules and don't overuse them. A good rule of thumb is if it's in list form after the dependent clause at the beginning or connecting to independent clauses with coordinating junctions, like and, yet, so, or, nor, but, or, for. And here's another example of what not to do when you are emailing a professor. Firstly, the student uses the professor's first name, which again, don't do that unless you have been given permission by the professor. The subject line is really vague. It doesn't really include what information or your goal or action item that you want to address in the email. Within it, there is poor punctuation, also missing capitalization here, missing letters here, and then it just simply says, Kate, you don't let your professor know what class you're in or what assignment you are talking about. So this is the same essential email, but improved. The first thing to notice is the subject line. It's very clear what you're emailing about, so the professor doesn't have to guess. Next, you use their name and their correct honorific. You introduce yourself, and you let them know what class you are discussing. You keep it short and sweet. You just say you have to miss class due to club event, and then you address what you are emailing about, which is the additional work to make sure you're caught up. And then you end it with having a great afternoon and your name. Another example of a good email is this email. Again, the subject line is clear and to the point, but also discusses what you're emailing about. You include the professor's name, hopefully spelled correctly, and their correct honorific. You address why you are emailing, and then you include your name, your class, and the section number that you're in. So a good way to practice this is to imagine that you're in your third week in college and you've missed your 8 a.m. English class the last 2 days due to oversleeping. Create the worst possible email that you can think of to send to your professor, and then try to correct it and make it an email that you would actually want to send to your professor. And that will be a great way to practice. I hope you all enjoyed this workshop, and good luck emailing your professors.